Hey, long time no see. You've really aged. Huh, we're divorced, you know. You could at least try to be a bit more considerate in how you speak. We're exes, so I thought I could speak freely. What have you been up to since we split? Right after our divorce, I got remarried, you know. And guess what? My wife was pregnant right after the wedding. It seemed she was already pregnant when we divorced. It turns out if you're not infertile, having kids is easy. Now I'm living happily with my wife and son. I see, good for you, being so happy. And how about you? Oh, sorry. With your infertility, you'll be alone forever, right? Past 30 and unable to have kids. No one's going to want you. I divorced my ex-husband 50 years ago due to infertility. At a class reunion, I met my ex-husband who boasted about his family. However, it seems he's greatly mistaken. Huh, mistaken about what? Now, I'll make sure he knows so he won't misunderstand. I'm sure he'll be frustrated to hear it. Also, while I'm at it, I'll add a little extra information with a bit of mischief. I decided to tell Derek something I didn't have to. My work beyond my imagination drove him crazy. I'm Amy, 28 years old, and working for our consulting firm. I'm about to get married soon and will be meeting my parents shortly. My soon-to-be husband, Derek, is 28 and a salesman at a major manufacturer. We've been childhood friends since kindergarten. Through middle school, we went to different high schools. And after graduating from university, I left my hometown to start my job. Years later, we reconnected through social media and realized we worked nearby. I met Derek again for the first time since middle school. Reuniting with a childhood friend as adults, away from our hometown, we fell in love right away and eventually decided to marry. Do you think you'll be okay? I'm worried your dad might not like me. Don't worry so much, it'll be fine. But your dad is a company president, right? When we were kids, I didn't think much of it and just called him uncle. But now that I work, it's natural to feel nervous, isn't it? My husband kept adjusting his perfectly straight tie and wiping the sweat from his brow with a handkerchief. He was being tense, and I felt nervous just watching him. Indeed, my father owns a metalworking company, but it's a small to mid-sized business in a rural area. It used to be quite a large company, but it has significantly downsized now, and my father isn't exactly a dignified figure. If you're okay with a daughter like her, you can take her, but remember, no returns. My father's easygoing nature eased my husband's tension within a minute. I won't be returning her. In fact, even if you ask for Amy back, I won't give her up. By the end, my husband was relaxed enough to joke around. My mother and I exchanged glances, sharing a well, that's over with look. At least that meant the introduction went well, so my husband could relax. But on the ride home, he looked a bit troubled. After hearing about the factory and the company today, it seems your father's business isn't doing too well, is it? It's not as good as it used to be. Well, that's just the way things go with time. But you're a management consultant, right? Can't you do something? Do you know how hard it is to turn a company around? I have my own job, and it's not like I can help my dad's business on the side. If I were to do it, I'd have to quit my current job and join his company. You are an only child, so you're planning to quit your job eventually and take over the family business, right? That's not going to happen. My dad doesn't want me to inherit the company and struggle. He plans to sell it in the future. That's why I'm only giving him simple advice to keep the company going until he retires. I see. Realizing there's no need to worry about my father's company, my husband's expression softened. I felt happy that he cared about my father, and my expression softened too. Half a year later, we got married. I'll have a coffee. Do you want your usual tea, Annie? Yes, thank you. While I was cleaning up the dinner dishes, my husband brewed my tea. He timed it so the tea wouldn't get cold, waiting until I finished with the dishes. Me being a salesman, he's very attentive. Without me saying anything, he anticipates what I need and does it first. I have no complaints about that, and our married life is going smoothly. However, 2 years into our marriage, although I had no complaints about our life, I started feeling anxious. Our relationship was good, and we were intimate with each other. But 2 years into the marriage, we still hadn't been blessed with a child. There's no need to rush. It will happen in time. But I'm already 30. I can't help but feel a bit anxious. My husband, lounging on the living room sofa and fiddling with his smartphone, responded lightly to my concerns. Normally, I might have expected him to listen more seriously. However, I know he's intentionally keeping it casual, so I don't feel too anxious or responsible about not being able to get pregnant. Derek is an only child, too, and his parents both worked. He often spent time alone at home and has a strong longing for a family life. Both of my parents worked as well, but I used to go to my parents' office after school, so I never felt lonely like he did, always having my parents and their employees around. But I understand the importance of spending time with people. Therefore, I want to make my husband's wish come true. I also want a child. Just to be sure, I'll go to the hospital and get checked. Do you really need to do that? If there's nothing wrong, then that's great. But if there is, it's better to know the cause, right? Well, that might be true. But the next weekend, I went to the hospital alone. There were 2 reasons for this. First, I thought that even if I got checked, they would probably say there's nothing wrong. The second reason was that if there was a problem, I didn't know how to react if my husband was there with me. Without thinking too deeply, I went to the hospital, waiting for my name to be called while thinking about what to buy on the way back. The examination was quick, but the results would come later, so I went home for the day. 2 weeks later, I was given the results. Why does it seem like bad news always takes precedence in these situations? After hearing the results, I didn't go shopping as planned and walked home, staring at the ground. It turns out I'm infertile. I see. The night I received the results, I told my husband about my infertility. I chose to tell him during dinner, hoping it would somehow ease the mood, but the atmosphere at home became tense, and both of us stopped eating. However, not everything was hopeless. There was still some chance. The doctor said that my infertility could be treated with about a 30% success rate. The success rate decreases as you get older, especially after 30. It seems I just made it in time. 30%, huh? And that rate will decrease from now on, I said, contemplating the odds. While I started to eat again, my husband's fork remained still. It seems there is a difference in perception between my husband and me regarding the 30% figure. When I was told I was infertile, I despaired, thinking I couldn't have children. However, hearing the 30% chance, I felt relieved, considering it a not-so-low number. But to my husband, 30% didn't seem like a high probability. Seeing his disappointed expression, I stopped eating again. Since that day, our once smooth marital life has become somewhat awkward. Will you be home late tomorrow, too? I asked, hoping for a sign of normalcy. As I cleared the dishes, I spoke to my husband, relaxing in the living room, but he replied disinterestedly. Ever since he learned about my infertility, he has been coming home late. He says he's busy with work, but I suspect he wants to reduce the time he spends at home. As a result, on weekends, he leaves early in the morning and returns late at night with his late returns. I started eating dinner alone. Moreover, he stopped sleeping in the bedroom and started sleeping on the living room sofa. We lived together, but it seemed like we were living separately. I felt lonely as I sensed my husband drifting away, but knowing the cause lies with me, I couldn't blame him. 6 months later, our relationship had completely cooled down, and we hardly spoke at home. Today, being a weekend, he left the house early. Watching him put on his shoes at the entrance, I felt a sense of relief. I felt lighter after you left and found myself more efficient with the laundry. But as I was about to put his shirt in the washing machine, I sighed. I thought again with the foundation, it's so hard to remove. His shirt had foundation stains, but I wasn't surprised. It has been happening occasionally for the past 2 or 3 months, since our relationship had already cooled off. I had no intention of making a fuss about a possible affair. I spread out the shirt stained with foundation and resigned myself to the fact that our marriage was probably reaching its end. That night, I approached the topic of divorce. Should we end this? If we divorce, you can be with your new woman, right? So you knew, let's skip the pretense. I won't ask for a property division over the affair, so can we part ways smoothly? Okay, I have a job, so I don't need the money. Plus, as he works for a major manufacturer, the property division wouldn't hurt him much. So a hassle-free divorce is preferable to me. Derek accepted the divorce without batting an eye, as if he anticipated it, though I wasn't asking for a property division. I did want to know a bit about his affair partner. This was just my curiosity. What's she like, your partner? She's 2 years younger. We met through our shared interest in fishing. Ah, so that's where you've been going on weekends. She's bold to date a married man. You didn't. Your marriage did. You know, I was honest. I told her we were divorcing and that our relationship was with the intent to remarry. No, I'm just waiting for her. Waiting? Don't tell me she's married. No, she's single. I succeeded in a love conquest. I had a lot to say after hearing his story, but saying too much could jeopardize the smooth progression of our divorce. So I swallowed my words. The divorce went through without any issues. He quickly moved on to his new partner, who apparently had also left her boyfriend. I thought I'd be fine with a divorce, having prepared for it, but the reality hit me harder than expected. After staying in the house and continuing to work for a while, I eventually quit my job and returned to my parents' home. 15 years later, back at my parents' home, I fully recovered from the divorce. It's almost a distant memory now. Then I received an invitation to a middle school reunion. Derek, also a childhood friend, might be there. During the divorce, I prioritized a smooth separation, so I didn't say everything I wanted to. I didn't ask for property division over the affair, but that didn't mean I wasn't angry. I decided to attend the reunion, thinking of getting a little back at him after 15 years, but my small act of revenge would drastically affect his life. When I arrived, I was greeted by many familiar faces. Catching up with old friends, we reminisced about the past. While enjoying the conversation, I saw him approaching me. Hey, long time no see. You've aged, Derek greeted me with a laugh and a rude comment. If I'm old, then so is he, right? We were enjoying the conversation until he approached with a villainous grin, making the others feel awkward. We're divorced, remember. Try to be more considerate. We're exes, so I thought I could speak freely. What have you been up to since our divorce? I got remarried right after ours, you know, and my wife was pregnant immediately. Turns out if you're not infertile, it's easy to have kids. Now I'm living happily with my wife and son. I see. Good for you, being so happy. How about you? Oh, sorry. Being infertile, you must be alone for life, right? No one wants someone over 30 who can't have kids, right? Who's alone? Derek then started showing photos of his family outings on his phone and bragging about his new wife and son, trying to assert his happiness over mine. I listened to Derek's boring stories with a blank expression. He seems to be under several misconceptions. Just correcting those will surely make him feel regretful. As I was thinking about how to address his misunderstandings, my daughter Jane approached me at the perfect moment. "Mommy, I made a new friend." "That's great, sweetie. Mommy is talking to this man right now, so can you play with your new friend a little longer?" "Okay." She obediently ran off, full of energy. "Hey, who was that girl?" "Oh, she's my daughter. Didn't you know kids were allowed today? Look, there are other kids here too." "No, I mean, didn't she just call you Mommy?" "Yes, that's my daughter Jane. She's 10 this year." "But you were infertile, right? How do you have a child?" "Oh, I see. She's your stepchild from a new marriage, right?" "How rude. Jane is my biological daughter." "Infertile, but you have a child. How?" "I told you infertility can be treated. You just assumed it was incurable." Around us, soft laughter could be heard. I had shared with close friends about my divorce and having a child, so Derek, who assumed I couldn't have children and was flaunting his own, became the butt of the joke. He realized he was being laughed at. "So you have a child, which means you got married again." "Congratulations." Derek, embarrassed by his failed attempt to show off, was red-faced. His congratulatory words seemed more like an attempt to save face. "Who'd marry an old lady like you?" "It's called workplace romance, really. Still working at the consulting firm." "Oh, you don't know. I took over my father's company. Now I'm the president. Dad hasn't retired yet. He's the chairman." "What? I thought that company was going to be sold after the divorce." I returned home and decided to take over the family business. In these 15 years, it was tough, but now our annual revenue is close to $30 million. We've moved from a small to a medium-sized business to a major one. $30 million. My successful turnaround of my father's company was well known among local friends. Derek, unaware of this, was laughed at again. "You said turning a company around wasn't easy." It wasn't, but after the divorce and quitting my job, I could fully dedicate myself to it. Reviving my father's company was a continuous struggle. Initially, many employees had a negative impression of me suddenly returning to take over. So I first focused on building trust through active communication with employees. It took 2 years just to achieve that. Once I earned their trust, I leveraged my consulting experience to prove my business acumen. It took about 3 years for this phase. During this time, I worked so hard that I wore myself out, both physically and mentally. But my current husband was there to support me. He also stood by me through the infertility treatments, and 10 years ago, we were blessed with our daughter Jane. Even after her birth for 10 years, we all worked tirelessly. Before I knew it, the company broke through the common business barrier of $10 million in annual revenue and is now growing towards $30 million. You are the president of a company with $30 million in revenue. Yes. You left me because of my infertility and went to another woman, not knowing that I had the potential to become the president of a company with $30 million in revenue, but I was able to have a child. How do you feel now? And how about you? How's work? Have you become a sales manager or something? I asked Derek with a villainous smile, not knowing his current status at the company. But in a major manufacturer company like his, there must be a lot of competition. Seeing him clench his teeth in silence. I was convinced he hadn't made significant progress in his career. I successfully countered his attempt to glow over his children and took the upper hand with my career success. Seeing his frustrated expression, I felt satisfied but decided to drop one more bomb. By the way, you said your wife got pregnant immediately after your marriage, which was right after our divorce. But she also left her boyfriend around the same time, right? Does that really mean that it's my child? Of course it is. There's no mistake about it. That doesn't sound very convincing. You know you were having an affair and she was cheating too, right? The topics of affairs, cheating, and the possibility that Derek's child might belong to someone else drew the attention of those around us. Not just our close friends, but many others gathered around us. Though it was a bit embarrassing to be the center of attention, Derek was clearly the villain in this situation. All the cold stares were focused on him. Realizing the cold stares were directed at him, Derek fled the venue as if he was escaping. Satisfied with making him embarrassed, I resumed chatting with my friends, feeling like I had gotten my revenge on him. I thought I wouldn't have to think about Derek anymore. However, a month after the reunion, he called me, probably getting my number from a friend at the event. Reluctantly, I answered the phone. "Hey, did you know about this?" I racked my brain for what he could be referring to, but came up blank and asked him directly, "What are you talking about all of a sudden? What's going on?" "It's about my child. Just like you said, it turns out he's not actually my child." What? I couldn't help but burst into laughter, even though I knew I shouldn't. Apparently, Derek had a DNA test done, worried by my words, and it turned out that the child he thought was his with his new wife was not biologically related to him. "How did you know that, and why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know. I just said that to make you uneasy, or maybe cause a little argument with your wife. I never thought it would actually be true." Was she a crazy woman? No, she thought it was my child too. She didn't know until I told her. She had a boyfriend until right before getting pregnant with you, and you both never questioned it. That's unbelievable. But you've raised him for 15 years. Even if he's not biologically yours, he's still your son, right? What? No way. I was deceived into raising someone else's child for 15 years. It's definitely going to be a divorce. I had a lot to say to Derek, just like during our divorce discussion. But everyone has their own values, and it's not my place to interfere in someone else's family matters. So you're going to divorce her. That's the problem. I can't because she won't agree to it. Apparently, upon discovering the child wasn't his, Derek wanted to divorce his now wife. She, however, first tried to contact her boyfriend from 15 years ago, probably to see if she could rely on him after a divorce. But after telling him about the child, he disappeared, quitting his job and becoming unreachable. Can't you divorce her because she had another man's child? Isn't that grounds for divorce? That's where it gets complicated. The child was conceived before our marriage, so it's not technically infidelity. We both thought he was ours. It seems the situation between Derek and his new wife is more confusing than I imagined. He explained it in detail, but it was a legal matter that I didn't fully grasp. What I understood was that legally Derek is recognized as the father since they both believed the child was theirs. To push through with a divorce, he would need to legally prove he's not the father and nullify their parental relationship. However, there was a case where the Supreme Court ruled that a DNA test couldn't negate a father-child relationship, making his situation quite complicated. Even if the parent-child relationship is legally dissolved, it's not entirely the wife's fault, as both she and Derek believed it was their child, and neither had investigated the father's identity. Since it wasn't a deliberate deception on her part, a divorce on the grounds of the child's paternity may not be granted. So the new wife, having nowhere else to turn after the real father disappeared, refuses to divorce Derek. He wants to divorce but can't use the child's paternity as a reason. That's the situation. So you want a divorce but can't, right? Exactly. What should I do? Continue raising someone else's child? I sighed upon hearing Derek's dilemma. You keep saying someone else's child, but he's been your son, hasn't he? Oh, he's the child of my wife's ex, not mine. I tried to reason with him, but it seemed futile. I have nothing more to say to you. It was your decision to divorce me over my supposed infertility, to take your new wife from her boyfriend, and not to check who the child's real father was. Own up to your decisions. I hung up on him in anger. What a pathetic ex-husband, crying to his ex-wife from 15 years ago. Returning home from work, I found my husband and daughter happily watching TV in the living room. Watching them, I felt glad I had divorced Derek. Apparently, Derek couldn't divorce and moved out, so now they're living separately. If the separation lasts 3 to 5 years, it could become grounds for divorce. However, until then, he must pay living expenses and child support for his wife and son. His son is 15, so even if the divorce happens in 3 years, he will be an adult. His wife likely won't drag out the divorce process then. Also, his son doesn't know the truth yet about his biological father and resents Derek for leaving. Learning the truth might either alleviate this resentment or it won't. I hope Derek faces his son's anger without running away. By then, he will have experienced a second divorce and probably be done with marriage. My ex-husband, who tried to gloat over me for being childless, ended up having his life turned upside down by a casual statement I made. He should have refrained from trying to one-up me. I continued to work hard, and unlike Derek, our family relations are strong. We are currently planning our next family outing.